Well, let me ask this:
what the point is here.
Is our view of what Jesus, the way Jesus talks about women, is that tainted in any way? Is that I certainly read Paul's discussion on women through a certain lens,
Yeah. So my thinking is he's also a product of his time, if not a more compassionate one, and we got my case study is the woman who came to say heal my daughter, and he's the whole thing with the dogs and the crumbs at the table, that whole story. And we want to save Jesus by saying he was testing her faith, and I'm like, no, Jesus was, I think, being sexist and racist all at the same time, because maybe he was, again, just being a product of his time.
Well, and I think the text backs that up too.
Right. And also he was open to being challenged and changing his mind about things, which I think if there's a lesson you get out of that story, it's that, no one expects you to be perfect, but be willing to hear feedback and criticism and change your stance about things.
Right. Well, and go ahead, Leighton.
Well, I was just going to say that that is typically my read on that story as well, and larger conversations about how much of Jesus's humanity impacted his bias and worldview. I will say that a more Orthodox friend and I debated about that text a couple months ago, and one thing he did say that I had honestly never thought about before was, if you believe that Jesus was genuinely being sexist and racist in that moment, then you either have to believe that Jesus was not in fact sinless, or you have to believe that sexism and racism aren't inherently sinful. And I was like, wow, I've never, and I don't believe Jesus was perfect. I am unresolved on the question of sin. But that, so, because the other thing is a clergy colleague just yesterday maybe, or over the weekend, posted, I had never heard this before, but apparently there are a lot of scholars that talk about how the woman at the well, that encounter is overladen with sexual imagery, where he basically is trying to get it on with her, right? And I can't tell from that read whether he's being coercive or not. And it turns out that the one line that I may not be able to cross and still call myself a follower of Jesus is if he turns out to be a creepy Me Too guy, right? I'm that's a level of toxic masculinity that I just can't cancel out by saying he was human and divine.
I found our episode title. Should we Me Too Jesus? There you go.
No. Yeah. I mean, no, I agree. If that's where we're going to come down, I can't do it either.
But hey, listen, this is weird coming from the one guy on the show. I got no problem with that. I have no problem with seeing Jesus again as someone in struggling with, I believe, his humanity and his divinity all rolled up in him all at the same time, having needs, desires, and urges that, according to the scripture, he may not be able to fully, fulfill. Or if you believe a more humanized version of him that's not in the scripture, maybe he did after all. Hashtag Mary Magdalene. Why not believe?
Because repentance.
Well, see, for me, that gives me more hope. I think people view the stories that humanize Jesus more and more as knocking him off a pedestal. And for me, I hear these stories and it gives me hope in my humanity / divinity that there's hope for me yet. Because if this is Jesus and he's having these experiences where, he's raging out in the temple, or he's being hangry and cursing the fig tree, or he's being sexist and racist, or, he's flirting with the women at the well, and yet he can still be this profound example of compassion and grace and love. There's hope for me, because I'm just as imperfect